When the call came through, Detective Chief Inspector Declan Walsh was driving into work from his house in Hurley, with Detective Inspector Anjali Kapoor by his side. It was early in the day, late in the week, and, unsurprisingly, the M4 motorway had been a nightmare. The original plan, following the events of the last couple of weeks, had been to gain some buffer space on their workload, and Declan had hoped to get into the office with time to spare and make a dent in the amount of paperwork they currently had. The unit had been quite busy recently, but many of the cases had been small and quick to solve. However, the problem with a quickly solved case was the amount of paperwork they'd just added to it. That, and there were a couple of solicitors causing issues with their clients, causing even more paperwork and delays. It hadn't helped either that Detective Superintendent Alex Monroe and Dr. Rosanna Marcos had been away for the last 2 weeks on a slightly belated honeymoon, leaving, in Monroe's own words, the sweetie shop in the hands of the Oompa Loompas, which was both incorrect and mildly offensive at the same time. Still, it had been a quieter summer than usual, and now, as September was almost starting, Declan was almost looking forward to autumn. That, and the fact that Jess would be continuing her A-levels and not hanging around the Temple Inn offices as much. It wasn't that he didn't like his daughter being there. It was mainly that in the week since Carl Schnitter's death, she'd been more withdrawn than usual, and a change in the environment would help her immensely. So much so that Henry Farrow had taken her into Tottenham for a week before she started preparing for sixth form, purely to show her how real coppers worked, in his own terms. Declan had wondered how much of this was because of his wife, and Declan's ex-wife, Liz, wanting more distance between them. Recently, she'd become way colder to Declan, but he couldn't fault that. Being connected to Declan Walsh in any way never seemed to be easy. It was why he was always so surprised Anjali was still there. So, claiming the murder scene was technically on their route, and ignoring Billy's protestations that it wasn't anywhere near Temple Inn or the city, Declan had informed Billy that, regardless, they'd be picking the case up as soon as they could. As it was, they only arrived an hour, maybe 90 minutes after the call had come through. It was, however, still enough time for a police cordon to go up, blocking the view of a surprising amount of onlookers for this time of the morning, guarded by PC Esme Cooper. A forensic tent was about 50 feet behind her, over what looked to be a black cab, beside some apartment blocks in the middle of the Isle of Dogs, with suited and masked forensic officers examining the vehicle. Sergeant Morton de Geer, their modern-day Viking, 7 feet tall, and with short blonde hair and beard, saw them approach, and walked over to the cordon as PC Cooper led them through. "Gov," he said, nodding from Declan to Anjali. "Other Gov?" Declan frowned. De Geer wasn't in the usual forensics one-piece the other forensics officer and Sockos wore, which was unusual for him. "No PPE?" he asked, waving his tactical pen at the sergeant. "Dr. Marcos arrived before I did and took the examination on." De Geer shrugged. "Got the impression she needed a distraction, and it's too hot to wear the damn things." "I didn't realise they were back from honeymoon." The statement surprised Anjali. "I thought it was a 3-week trip." "I think it was shortened by mutual decision," De Geer replied, tapping his nose. "But nobody's brave enough or stupid enough even to ask." Declan understood that statement. "What have we got?" he asked, pulling on his blue latex gloves.